The boardroom had been buzzing with hushed conversations for weeks, and Catherine Collins, newly appointed CEO of Nexus Technologies, could no longer pretend she didn't hear them. Rumors revolved around Jack Miller as the night janitor, a reserved single father who rarely spoke but never failed to notice everything around him. Several employees had reported seeing him wandering into restricted sections of the building after hours. Security recordings showed him pausing near executive workstations, entering the R&D corridors when he assumed the building was empty. With a crucial product release on the horizon and rival companies aggressively seeking weaknesses, Catherine knew she could not overlook the possibility of a breach. She decided she would observe him personally that night. What she discovered would not just reshape her perception of Jack Miller, it would reshape the future of her entire corporation. The full account reveals why the quietest person in the room sometimes becomes the one who alters everything, and how one janitor influenced a powerful CEO to rethink her entire enterprise. Jack Miller, 42 years old, moved through the polished hallways of Nexus Technologies with steady precision. His rough hands guided a cleaning cart down the long corridors, his gaze humble yet always quietly attentive. His 4 years at the company had taught him more than one might assume which executive carelessly left coffee stains, which engineers worked until sunrise, and which security officers had earned his trust. His faded blue uniform hung loosely on a body that had once been athletic but had grown lean from years of stretching every paycheck to support his 8-year-old daughter, Ma. Among the cleaning staff, Jack was admired. He willingly took the toughest shifts, covered for co-workers without complaint, and somehow remembered everyone's birthday with handwritten notes. Yet to upper management, he was invisible, another nameless worker tending the immaculate corporate file. Section 8. Catherine Collins, 35, existed at the opposite end of that corporate ladder. With sharp green eyes that missed nothing and a reputation for strategic brilliance, she had climbed through Nexus with remarkable speed. As a single mother to 10-year-old Nathan, she knew sacrifice intimately. Her Harvard education and impeccably tailored wardrobe created an unspoken distance between her world and Jack's. A painful divorce from an unfaithful husband had left her cautious, guarded, and far more trusting of data than of people. After assuming the CEO position 6 months earlier, she governed Nexus with a commanding intensity and a disciplined skepticism. Neither she nor Jack had any idea how abruptly their separate realities were about to overlap. Catherine's suspicion began during a late-night review of security procedures. The newly hired CFO had offhandedly mentioned that his computer appeared slightly disturbed one morning. When she ordered a review of older footage, a pattern slowly emerged: Jack entering areas beyond his clearance level, using executive computers at night, occasionally connecting what resembled storage devices to USB ports. "This makes the third time," she muttered, narrowing her eyes at the grainy video of Jack walking into the server room well past his official hours and reappearing nearly 40 minutes later with something slipped discreetly into his pocket. The following morning, she summoned Marcus Reynolds, the head of security. "What do we actually know about this janitor?" she asked, sliding Jack's file toward him. Marcus lifted a shoulder. "Miller keeps to himself, reliable, works hard, no complaints. That's about it." Catherine's tone sharpened. "A man who has full access to the building every night, and that's all the information we have." His employee record held very little. Jack Miller, age 42, several previous jobs, no listed college education, single father, emergency contact, his mother, flawless attendance, basic wages, nothing that justified his presence in sensitive areas near confidential terminals. Later that day, Catherine noticed Jack wiping the glass walls of the conference room as her executive team discussed financial projections. His reflection paused momentarily on the screen behind them before he continued cleaning. Had he silently absorbed what was displayed? That evening, she pulled Marcus aside. "We have a critical launch coming in a matter of weeks. If anything leaks," Marcus offered a blunt solution. "Want me to remove him quietly?" Catherine hesitated. Something felt off. Jack had been with Nexus for years. Why would he suddenly risk everything now? And if he truly intended to steal company data, why behave in a way that practically invited suspicion? "Not yet," she said. "I want to know exactly what he's doing and who might be guiding him." That Friday, Catherine abandoned her dinner reservation and remained at the office, changing into casual clothes she kept for emergencies. When Jack ended his shift and headed to the parking lot, she followed at a careful distance as his aging Honda Civic rolled out. The route led away from the wealthy neighborhood circling Nexus, descending into steadily humbler districts. Catherine kept several cars between them, her pulse quickening as she wondered where this trail would lead day and what she was about to learn. Catherine followed Jack through the quiet streets, her mind racing with assumptions. Was he meeting someone? Was he exchanging Nexus innovations to competitors? After a long, tense drive, Jack finally pulled into the parking lot of a worn-down building with a peeling sign that read Westside Community Resource Center. He stepped out, grabbed an old backpack from his trunk, and disappeared inside. After giving him a few minutes, Catherine approached and peered through a window. Inside, Jack was arranging laptops in what looked like a small classroom. Young students trickled in, mostly teenagers, a few younger children, all from varied backgrounds. Jack welcomed each one with familiarity, guiding them to computers as though this were a daily ritual. Confused, Catherine slipped through the entrance and paused in the hallway, listening. Jack's tone was warm, confident, a voice she had never once heard in the corporate halls of Nexus. Remember our conversation about algorithm efficiency? Today we're taking that knowledge further. Let's build something that genuinely helps the community. Catherine peeked around the doorway. Jack stood before a whiteboard, sketching a detailed software workflow with surprising mastery. The students watched him with complete focus, absorbing every motion of his hands as he outlined complex interactions between system components. The same hands that, only hours earlier, had been collecting trash bins under fluorescent corporate lights. A bright-eyed girl lifted her hand. Mr. Miller, could we apply the same structure to the community resource database? Jack smiled with unmistakable pride. Excellent thinking, Lucia. That's exactly the type of real-world application we're aiming for. Catherine remained rooted in place, astonished as she recognized the subject matter, advanced architecture concepts that even many university students struggled with. Yet these children, some in worn shoes and hand-me-down clothing, typed with enthusiasm while Jack moved between desks, offering guidance with patient clarity. When the class ended, Jack stepped into another room where smaller children waited eagerly. From the shadows, Catherine watched as he handed out refurbished laptops one by one. These belong to you, he told a boy who couldn't have been older than 10. They already have educational tools installed. Your password is your birthday, just like we practiced. The boy clutched the laptop to his chest with the gratitude of someone receiving something life-changing. Hours later, when Jack finally exited the center carrying empty crates, Catherine hid behind the column as he loaded them back into his car. She recognized them instantly as the same containers she had seen him remove from Nexus. Not devices stolen for profit, but equipment he had restored and donated. As her phone buzzed with a message from her assistant, she didn't notice Jack approaching until he spoke. "Miss Collins, a broken bar. Is everything okay?" She froze, caught in her own surveillance. Jack maintained a respectful distance, fatigue visible on his face yet his eyes calm and perceptive. "I was a broken bar dropping off donations," she said awkwardly, motioning toward the building. Jack's expression stayed polite, though disbelief flickered behind his gaze. "The center is always grateful for support," he replied, "especially from someone with your influence." He paused. "If you ever want to learn more about the program, I'd be glad to give you a proper visit. We teach coding, digital literacy, copyright, copyright, building a basic skills that might open real opportunities for these kids." Catherine's response slipped out harsher than she intended. "And you're qualified to teach all of this because a broken bar?" Something tightened in Jack's face, and the warmth in his eyes dimmed. "Good evening, Miss Collins." He walked away without another glance, leaving her standing in confusion. The next morning, unsettled, Catherine asked her assistant to gather everything available about Jack Miller. By late afternoon, she received a folder that made her sink into her chair in disbelief. Jack Miller was not merely qualified, he was once a key figure in the tech world. Archived reports and old patents listed his full name: Jonathan Jack Miller, former senior systems architect at Empirical Software. Even more shocking, He had contributed to the foundational technology that Nexus later purchased and transformed into their flagship products. "This must be a mistake," Catherine whispered as she scrolled through old industry records. Years earlier, Jack had held a highly regarded position at Empirical before suddenly vanishing from the tech landscape. More searching revealed the truth: a wrongful termination case he had filed against Empirical's CEO, William Harrington. Jack had accused them of approving unsafe shortcuts in medical software, potentially risking patient safety. Though he had eventually won a small settlement, Harrington retaliated by ensuring Jack was quietly blacklisted across the industry. Not long after, tragedy struck again. Jack's wife died of cancer, leaving him to raise his daughter alone. Catherine leaned back, trying to reconcile everything she had learned with the quiet janitor who emptied trash cans outside her office each night. The man she had suspected of espionage had once been a brilliant innovator in the very field she now led. Jack ni kabinai bataya kap jays kisi shaks ko wajanti hai, Diane ni maskura at but shak bari nazark saith kaha. Catherine ni sakbola, humwa ke ek user ko nai jant. Main bazap program bear mind Sayadis imagine a shari hoon. Diane ni fakrik saith batayak center Sayadatar immigrant low income perivran ki kidnap karti hay IC families jahan walad and do jobs kart hain, bakon ko oksradik nwala coin I hold up hum unmakanaidat. Diane ni kaha, hum ein mwakadit hain. For us collection armed hoga, Jack key classes new sab kuch batal dia high, hum baz basic computer access to sakta, ab coding hodi high, digital literacy hodi high, internships glide tayari hodi high, yes ab walmuft kardi high, apna walkta to high, apni teraf say equipment dundi high, repair kardi high, for donate karda high. Catherine ni Diane copy jakiak kot sakom tak jahan jakak buzerg katun ko video calling si kid mine masroof they. Diane hemia was mindbully. Bikari ko open poton kodak u8 sol hoch u they. Jack ni nasur funko connection set kia. Baki ansikea bikkays istmalkarno high. Center kaharkon pereni cheese and comaj more lag the they. Gis hui chairs. Duct tape say Judy hua tables, cat say to pack tapani, lekant for bihawal minami da lagan ki mefus garmiti, Diane ni gabra kar kaha, humara sab sparamaz lajag equipment kahai, humirpas 60 back on ki indazulest high, jackap ni pa kashish kardi high, lekina agar koisak much madad care to, Catherine ni pucha. Diane Kiankan Chamakathi, yet Kasi Mojaze Sakam na Ihoga, Agilden, Catherine ni West Side Center Kli economist and approved card ajitna ki pori building ki maramat, ne computers, ek naya study hall bansake, Jabus Sham Jack ni ne systems lagdik, Diane surf nibali, humparake kan akramatnit silhua high, Agildino mind. Catherine Uxrader tak office ruckn logi, Jack ko dekn ki waja wakad samaj nai pati thi, abjab uze Jack isli mazi maluntha, wakodi kodi bidi note karti ray ajays wa server cables ko is say zi adisify say arrange karta pajitna Uxra engineers bina ikart, yafur developers ki screens parliko ko deklam ko rock car padi huanazarita, yafur prototype devices ko is terra say adjust karta jays unka asli masnuya designer home, jab koi careless executive confidential documents table park urjati ajakan ki tasper nai banata, baki unsecure drawers mine raktata. Catherine ko abdas of verho rahoth akwashak jisk shapar aznars kithi. Asal mine binakasin emiet reef company kli ek mahat guard kakam kar rahoth for wawak gayajais dek kar annexus hilga, bara launch karib thajab development team ni ekbo at bara software flaw dund nikala amaisa issue jo release ko mahino peach de kuldita. Company kolakon konux and po anch sak the they executive floor battlefield banga, harkoi dosh das verkoda rahathe, emergency meeting boule gay, lekan har solution you to katar nuktebo at der lab. Isa Hungay mind Catherine Kinazar conference room kshish mind Jakaks parpadia watch up shapsify kar rahatha, magarusk chipar jehre fikrakaz dil kisi jehrai say exaku buri, Catherine meeting say night la a, Jack a broken bar kai apek lam hudasak hain. Wadab Sayut Go, Catherine Usayak Quiet Corner Mind Lay, App Empirical Casely Architecture Team Kahisate, Joe Technology, Nexus Ni Bad Mind Kariti, Jack Ni Bast Nakaha, Lag the High App and Repori History D Kli High, Catherine Ni Him at Sakaha. HumeriCore Framework Integration Layer Mine Aktabakan Error Amaya High, Shamad Apko Koyanside Home, Jack Ni Dirt Tag Socha, Furbo Atsukun Sabola, Kaya Main Error Logs Dek Sakdihun, can it be repaired before the release? Catherine asked. Jack nodded with measured confidence. If the right strategy is applied, but to confirm anything, I'll need access to the entire codebase. Catherine made up her mind instantly. Come with me. She guided him back into the boardroom, where the executives fell into abrupt silence the moment they walked in. Without any dramatic build-up, Catherine declared, "This is Jack Miller. He served as the senior systems architect for the original platform and has pinpointed the root of our crisis. For the next 2 days, he'll be working directly with our development division." The CTO stared at Jack with disbelief, the unspoken label of janitor hanging heavily in the moment. Catherine's gaze sharpened. Mr. Miller was building advanced system architecture while you were still learning the fundamentals. Thomas, I suggest you pay close attention to his guidance. 2 days later, Nexus released its product as planned. Not only had the core defect been resolved, but Jack's approach produced new efficiencies that significantly elevated the system's overall performance. The company's stock surged by a solid margin before the trading session ended. In the days that followed, Catherine called a full company assembly. Every department executives, developers, administrative staff, and maintenance workers filled the massive atrium. Jack positioned himself uncertainly near the back, still wearing his janitorial uniform. This week, Nexus stood on the edge of a major catastrophe, Catherine began. But what matters today isn't simply that we avoided collapse, it's that we finally recognized value we overlooked for far too long. She motioned for Jack to step forward. After a hesitant pause, he did so, his posture stiff and self-conscious. Many of you see Jack as the person who keeps our facilities functioning. What you haven't known is that Jack Miller once stood at the forefront of the innovation that allowed Nexus to exist at all. She then detailed his achievements and the ethical choice that once derailed his career. While we walked past him each day, we failed to acknowledge the expertise that was, quite literally, sweeping our hallways. Turning toward him, Catherine said, "On behalf of Nexus, I offer both an apology and an opportunity. We would be proud to welcome you back as part of our technical leadership, effective immediately." A wave of whispers rippled through the crowd. Jack's expression remained even, though something unguarded flickered briefly in his eyes. "I appreciate the offer, Miss Collins," he said steadily, "but I will have to decline." Catherine had not expected that answer. Before she could respond, Jack continued, "Years ago, I chose integrity over ambition. That decision cost me everything I had built professionally, but it preserved something far more meaningful." His voice strengthened. "In losing that world, I discovered another. The young people and families I work with at West Side Center need guidance far more urgently than this company needs another architect." Catherine adapted quickly. "Then let me propose something else. Nexus will launch a technology access initiative, and West Side Center will serve as our primary partner. We'll contribute equipment, curriculum support, mentorship opportunity and we will need a director to lead our community technology outreach." She extended her hand. "The role is yours. If you choose it." Thunderous applause filled the atrium. A profound change softened Jack's features. A real smile, sincere and unrestrained, replaced the guarded mask he had worn for years. "This," he said as he clasped her hand, "is an opportunity I would be honored to accept." Progress began immediately. Jack continued teaching his evening classes at Westside, now supported fully by Nexus. Catherine visited often initially as part of oversight, but gradually because she grew attached to the vibrancy and purpose surrounding the center. One evening, she arrived to find Jack teaching Emma and several children, including her own son. Nathan. She hadn't expected their worlds to intersect like this, but the sight of Nathan fully absorbed in learning, the excitement in his eyes reflecting the same passion she once had before corporate pressure buried it, made something long tense inside her begin to loosen. When the session ended, Jack walked over, more at ease here than he ever appeared in a meeting room. Nathan has a remarkable gift for spatial reasoning, he said. He solved a three-dimensional modeling challenge that many adults struggle with. For someone who rarely, and my son has never shown interest in anything related to my field, Catherine admitted as she watched Nathan help the younger kids gather their materials. Perhaps because enterprise software rarely includes dinosaurs or interstellar battles, Jack replied with a surprisingly light tone. Catherine laughed at an unrestrained, genuine sound that startled both of them. As the weeks progressed, the initiative grew rapidly. Nexus staff members began volunteering their knowledge. Former students of the center returned to guide newcomers. Jack's calm, steady method of leadership is so unlike Catherine's direct and assertive style. He proved exceptionally effective in drawing the community together. What had begun as a professional alliance between a CEO and a former janitor turned director gradually deepened into something far more layered. Both carried wounds left by loss. Both were single parents shielding themselves with determination. In Jack's unwavering compassion, Catherine recognized a form of resilience entirely different from her own yet equally strong. In her decisiveness, Jack discovered a drive that perfectly complemented his patient mentorship. The true turning point arrived during a tense budget session. Catherine defended the initiative against board members who questioned its financial justification. This program isn't an act of charity, she stated firmly. It's a long-term investment in future innovators and in genuine community partnership. Our engagement metrics already show substantial improvements in public perception. More importantly, we've identified multiple promising students for our growing talent pipeline. The CFO nodded reluctantly. Valuable, yes, but the resources committed appear disproportionate to the immediate gains. Jack Miller built the core architecture that fuels this company, Catherine countered. Then we allowed him to scrub floors because the industry shut him out for making an ethical choice. How many brilliant minds have we overlooked simply because they lacked access and not intelligence? This initiative corrects the systemic oversight while strengthening our competitive edge. When the meeting adjourned, she found Jack waiting quietly outside the boardroom. You didn't have to defend us so fiercely, he said. Yes, she replied softly, I did. Their gaze held longer than formality required. That weekend, what began as a simple playdate for their kids gradually became dinner at Catherine's home, followed by a long conversation after the children drifted to sleep in front of a movie. As they discussed curriculum ideas and shared stories of raising children alone, the walls between them began to dissolve. Why did you follow me that night? Jack eventually asked. You could have easily dismissed me for accessing restricted systems. Catherine took a moment before answering. Something about your focus didn't match the assumptions being made about you. I needed clarity before passing judgment. That's uncommon, Jack observed. Most people prefer judgment when it's convenient. I've been judged too quickly, too often, she said quietly. It taught me not to trust easy conclusions. Their conversation stretched deep into the night, two guarded individuals slowly realizing how much of themselves they recognized in each other. Months later, the West Side Center unveiled its expanded facilities. Catherine had arranged a surprise, a plaque labeling the new space as the Jack Miller Technology Lab. A gesture he initially tried to dissuade but ultimately accepted with quiet grace. Where once there had been cramped rooms and outdated tools, there were now modern systems, inviting learning areas, and walls decorated with student creations. Even more meaningful was the crowded children from the neighborhood standing beside Nexus executives, community parents sharing space with software engineers. Everyone joined in celebrating a shared achievement. As Catherine prepared to speak, she noticed Jack kneeling beside a young boy wrestling with a coding puzzle. The same patient focus he applied to complex system challenges was present in the gentle way he guided the child's hands. When I stepped into the role of CEO, Catherine began, I believed success could be measured solely through revenue and performance metrics. Important measures, Yes, but incomplete ones. She gestured around the transformed space. Real innovation emerges when we recognize potential where others overlook it, when we value contribution above credentials, when we understand that talent doesn't always present itself in the forms we expect. Jack stood toward the rear of the room, uneasy with attention yet visibly moved by what had been created around him. This initiative exists because one man chose integrity and service over ambition, Catherine continued. Jack Miller reminded us that technology must uplift people, not distance us from them. Through that reminder, he helped Nexus rediscover a purpose beyond quarterly reports. A group of students and now interns at Nexus stepped forward and presented Jack with a handmade plaque. Unlike the polished corporate awards he had declined, this one carried the simple message crafted with heartfelt intent: for a broken bar, the man who recognized who we could become long before we realized it ourselves. Later, while the celebration carried on, Catherine noticed Jack standing quietly at the edge of the room, watching their children and several other students compete in programming games. Regretting turning down that senior architect title, she asked gently as she joined him. He shook his head without hesitation. No doubts at all? She teased. Jack gestured toward Emma, who was enthusiastically helping Nathan fix a line of code. Some structures carry more meaning than any software system. Without thinking, Catherine reached for his hand. As something unthinkable not long ago. You changed our trajectory, she said softly. Nexus was building brilliance with all the wrong priorities until you arrived. He countered just as firmly, and you were the only one courageous enough to steer the company in a new direction. Maybe we needed each other to finally see the full picture. Her hand tightened around his. I'm still learning how to value the things that don't appear in quarterly graphs. Jack's returning smile was warm and sincere. And I'm learning that influence doesn't always distort purpose, yet it can amplify it. As the evening drew to a close and families drifted out, Catherine watched Jack quietly assist the maintenance team or his former co-workers, helping them put away equipment. Despite his ris-toward professional stature, he remained the same grounded man. Nathan interrupted her thoughts. Mom, can Emma come for another coding sleepover this weekend? Mr. Miller said it's okay if you agree. Catherine smiled at his earnestness. I think that can definitely happen. When they were ready to leave, Jack locked up the new facility with gentle care, the instincts of someone who had spent years protecting fragile spaces with limited means. At the exit, he paused to look at the freshly installed wooden sign naming the expanded center, Westside Technology and Community Development Center. A built for second chances your idea? He asked, recognizing her touch. Some values deserve to be plainly honored, she replied. Their eyes met an unspoken acknowledgement that second chances were shaping more than just the building. Ahead of them, Emma and Nathan raced into the parking lot, their easy friendship untouched by the adults' layered history. Catherine and Jack followed at a slower pace, no longer just colleagues, but something gradually becoming more personal. The board approved regional growth, she told him. 5 additional centers in the next couple of years. Someone has to guide the larger mission, someone who understands both the technology and the humanity behind it. Jack considered it thoughtfully. Ambitious but essential, he said. Catherine added, access to technology still determines opportunity for so many people. What you've created deserves scale. They reached their car, her polished sedan beside his dependable Honda, both filled with children already brainstorming their next project. I'll think it over, Jack said, on one condition. She raised an eyebrow, which is, that you join us for the wilderness STEM camping trip next month. The kids learn environmental monitoring equipment. Parents learn how to function without email for 2 whole days. Catherine laughed, a free, unguarded sound she was still getting used to. Terrifying, she said. Growth requires discomfort, Jack reminded her, echoing a phrase she had used in a meeting weeks earlier. As they prepared to part ways for the night, Catherine reflected on how drastically her perspective had shifted. Months earlier, she had followed the janitor down a hallway, suspecting him of espionage. Now she was following his lead into a new era of community impact, the one she had never imagined for her company or for herself. Catherine, Jack called out as she opened her door. She turned, meeting the quiet steadiness in his expression, the same steadiness that had caught her attention the first time she truly looked at him. Some of the parents are organizing a community dinner next weekend. Nothing formal. You and Nathan would be welcome. The invitation settled between theme and professional cooperation, gently edging into personal territory. We'd love that, she replied simply. They drove off in opposite directions, she toward her executive district, he toward his modest apartment, yet the distance between them felt smaller than ever. In her rearview mirror, Catherine caught one last glimpse of the transformed center. Its windows glowed with new purpose, just as Nexus had, just as she had. What began in suspicion had become trust. What started as a corporate experiment had grown into a community movement, and what had emerged from professional admiration was slowly becoming something deeper. Catherine allowed herself a quiet smile. Some stories, she decided, were better left unfinished. She'd given room to unfold in their own time. For those two souls who had long ago forgotten the meaning of trust, life had quietly woven an unusual reminder that polishing dusty floors and managing vast enterprises could somehow lead them back to the same doorway of understanding. Their journey was far from over. In truth, it felt as though everything was only now beginning.